Hey everyone, it's time for another monthly wrap up or monthly check-in or whatever you want to call it. So I thought I would tell you real quickly, hopefully, about the books I read this past month in May and what I hope to read in June. So I did pretty good in May, 7 books. I got my stack right here to show you. 7 books, it's not too bad for my norm. I started out the month by finishing up The Fourth Wing, which I had gotten started in the end of April, by Rebecca Yarros. This is a very popular romantasy book that I heard everyone raving about last year, and I got it for Christmas and decided I would go ahead and see what I thought about it. If you watch my review, you will know that I feel very mixed. I had a lot of issues with it. I love the story, I love the dragons, I love the kind of the intensity of it, but I don't really like the writing style, or the romance itself is not my kind of romance. Also, I feel like that's simply put. I like a little more swooniness in my romance. Some people might find this swoony, but that's not my kind of swoony. It took me a minute to get into it, but once I got going, then it went real fast. And I have the second one ready to go, which I will read sometime, but I will give it a little bit of a break before I go back to that. Then I read a bunch of books for the Asian Readathon. Shine by Jessica Jung, which is a K-pop romance. It's much more than just a romance. It's about the behind the scenes of the K-pop world, which is pretty crazy and intense. So we get that with hers. And another Asian one for the Asian Readathon was When My Name Is Kyoko by Linda Sue Park, which is a sort of a middle grade / YA historical novel about the Japanese occupation in Korea and the start of World War II. Really, really good. 5 stars for this one. And I also read Kim Ji-young, born 1982, which I read on my Kindle. I forgot the author's name. Anyways, this is a Korean novel translated, I think, about a girl who kind of goes a little bit crazy in the beginning, and then we flash back to her life when she was born in 1982, and we see her whole life and all the things that happened to her. It's a very feminist book, all the terrible ways she was treated by men in her job and in her family and by their boyfriends and so on and so forth. Everyone pretty much treated her pretty crappy, and it's making a huge statement about women's equality in Korea specifically, but I think in general also. I had a hard time with it. It wasn't really a story that you get immersed into the characters' lives and all that. It was written real dry, like just kind of like an obituary almost. I don't know how you would say it. Not even like a diary. It was just a story that was just telling you what this girl did all through her life without really immersing you into the story. It was very weirdly written. A weird style, I should say. But I feel like it became really popular, especially in Korea, with people, you know, like celebrities and that endorsing this book because of the statement it was trying to make. I think this is how what I understand anyway. So it was interesting to read it and see, you know, kind of what people are kind of into. That one's weird to describe. Anyway, very weird reading experience. But I'm glad to have had it. Does that make sense? And then my other one I read that I'm counting for the Asian Readathon is This Woven Kingdom by Tara Mafi. Oh my gosh. I loved this one so much. I'm gonna do a review about it so I can talk a little more in depth about it, but it's just a basic epic fantasy, the first one in the series, I think, based on a Persian myth, I think. But it's also has a lot of connections to Cinderella. It's probably the Persian version of Cinderella, because there's a lot of Cinderella stuff, but there's a lot of things that have nothing to do with Cinderella also. But we have our prince who's trying to find somebody to marry, and there's a ball, and so all the girls are going to the ball. And we have our girl who is a servant and is treated really terribly, and she ends up going to the ball disguised. So does this sound familiar a little bit? And she's also a seamstress and makes dresses, and she has a dress delivered to her kind of magically. And then she also has to leave the ball by midnight. So, I mean, they're pretty pretty well tied into Cinderella, which I absolutely loved because it doesn't feel like Cinderella at the same time because there's so many other things. The girl is a djinn, and the guy, he's the prince of the kingdom who has been fighting against the djinn for years and years and years. So it's a forbidden love story in this beautifully, richly described fantasy world, which I absolutely adore her writing, Tahira Mafi's writing. Everything I read by her, I'm just like, oh my gosh. So yes, love, love, love. 5 stars. Can't wait to jump into the next one on this one. It ended in a terrible, terrible, crazy cliffhanger. Some people, I know you hate cliffhangers, so if you're going to read this one and you hate cliffhangers, just have the next book ready to go. I have no idea what the second one's like, and I don't know if there's going to be more. I just know there's the 2 right now. Favorite book of the month, pretty sure, along with My Name is Kyoko. So let's see. Then I also read on my Kindle A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kimmerer, which was for our book club, which was another fantasy fairy tale retelling. This one, Beauty and the Beast. Yes, and that one we have our girl who, it's also kind of a time travel, although it's not really a time travel, it's more like a portal. She's in our normal world, our normal contemporary world, and she gets brought into the kingdom world. So it feels like we go back in time. There she has to help the guy who's perfectly fine at the moment, but he turns into a beast. And he is in a time loop. And every season he turns into the beast and kills everyone. And then all of a sudden the season starts over again. And he has to find a girl. And his right-hand man, I don't know what his job was. The captain of the guard. That's who they always are, right? There's like a dude like that in this book too. There's always the dude that's next to the prince who is almost cooler than the prince himself, which was the case in Curse of Dark and Lonely. You fall in love with the captain of the guard dude. His name is Gray, just as much as you do the prince himself or more. Anyway, there's not a love triangle, but I mean, there's not really a love triangle anyway. Anyway, so he has to go find another girl at the end of, as every season begins again. There's another girl they bring in from the other world, and then he tries to fall in love with her, and it never works out until this time. But it's very crazy. I really enjoyed that one too. I almost gave that one 5 stars, but not quite. Can't remember why. There's more in that series also, and I think there's more about Gray, the dude that I was just talking about, in the second book. So we'll see. And then I also randomly got this one from the library, Heartstopper Volume 1, which is another book I've heard a lot about. It's a boy love book. That's what I like to call them. BL. It's the beginning of a huge series, I think. So this is just when the 2 guys meet and start agreeing that they probably like each other. This is on all the banned books list, of course. So I grabbed that. I'm like, oh, I've always wanted to read that. I'll count that towards my banned book reading this year, which I'm not doing that great on, actually. Graphic novel, as you can see, graphic novel. And yes, I probably will continue reading a few more. I don't know if I'll read the whole thing, but a few more in the series. I really enjoyed it. Sweet romance story, just like everyone said it was. Those are the 7 books I read in May, which I feel like is a really wide, even though I was focusing on Asian reading, I felt like it was still quite a wide variety. Although I have been reading a lot of fantasy lately. So now that I've finished this book, and I'm kind of, this book has put me in kind of a stupor. You know, one of those feelings where you're just like, this book was too good. I have no idea what I'm going to read next feeling. That kind of a feeling. So I kind of want to switch gears a little bit and not read a fantasy. Although I have a lot of fantasy on my immediate TBR. So for June, I am focusing on just jumping right into my big books of summer, which I did a video about that. And I've got my whole stack here still of books that I would like to read for that project. One of them is Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. This is our book club book for this month, and I need to jump into it real soon. But like I said, I need to I don't know if this one's actually considered fantasy, but kind of. it's in that realm, right? So I might need to read something a little bit more real before I jump into this one. And I was thinking maybe I would try The Distant Hours, which was on my big book stack. So I just now barely, right before I started this video, started reading this one. And wow, just the back of it, when I read the back of it, I'm just like, wow, that sounds so good. So I'm really hoping this one grabs me and I can just read it real fast. No, I don't care how thick and fat it is, if it really grabs me. But I like I said, I'm kind of in the mood for something like this right now because of all the fantasy I've been reading. So these two are kind of up close to the top of the list for right now. But also this one, because I got it from the library and I need to take it back. That's the second one after Shine in the K-pop story. So maybe I'll get that one done. And then when I was doing the Asian Readathon stuff from last month, I started this one. I'm on page 31 of this one. And so I might keep going on this one also. And I think I can go through it pretty quickly. There is a lot of food talk though. A lot of food talk. It's gonna make me hungry. In my quest to read something not fantasy, I have this one on my stack. It's just a cute YA romance. So these are the books I kind of read in between everything else just for my happy place. So I might read that one in June if I can fit it in. And then I don't remember if this book was on banned lists, but I know it's a BL story. So They Both Die at the End by Adam Silver. Because this month's theme that everybody's going on is Pride Month. So maybe I will add this one to this month too, just to have a book for that theme this month. And I know a lot of people are reading Westerns this month for June on the Range, but I don't have a Western in my stack right now. But I could maybe find one. Kiki Warner is a Western author that I really love, and I think I might have one of her books on my shelf that I would love to read. So maybe I won't officially declare myself participating in that, but maybe I'll stick a Western in the pile. That is a lot of books though. I doubt I'll be able to get through all of those. But also at the end of June, we will be going on our road trip to see the grandkids again. And I will probably have memoirs on audiobook, some memoirs, because July for book club is memoir month. So I will probably start listening to some memoirs on that road trip. So that will probably end up on my June pile also. And I already mentioned when I did my big books thing is that I'll probably take this one on our trip, but that one will definitely go into July. It won't be a June book, but it might get started in June. We'll see. Anyway, those are the things I've read this past month and the things I plan to read upcoming. That's a lot of stuff, I feel like. I don't know if any of those things interest you, if you've read any of those things. Sometimes I feel like I am reading completely different things from what everyone else is reading on Booktube. I feel like I'm talking about books that nobody's even knows what I'm talking about. Except for a few random ones, like, yeah, you've heard of Fourth Wing, I'm pretty sure. But I don't know if anybody's heard or talked about this one at all. There you have it. Until next time.